Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. Why do people like AR-15s? Why do people build their very own AR-15s? Hey, I'm Tom Gresham. It's Gun Talk. If you want to join us, 866-TALK-GUN gets you in here. Tons of people, of course, buying AR-15s and the various, variations of that, if you will. But a lot of people are building their own or customizing them, and to figure out why and what you can do with it, we brought in Nick Collier from DoubleStar. He not only is with DoubleStar, he's been on our Bill Box TV show, and sometimes, Nick, you appear as a guitarist in the Hired Guns band. How you doing?
That's right. Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. You playing any?
A little here and there.
Yeah, good deal. All right. So, all right, I guess the first question is, you can go out and buy a completed rifle, an AR-10, an AR-15. Why do people want to build their own?
There's various reasons. I've been there for 21 years, and I've heard quite a few good inspirations for builds. But usually it's with veterans, it's, build something like they carried when they were in the service. And that varies from Vietnam all the way up to recent service. So, those configurations vary.
Right. Okay.
The retro market is big right now. And when I say retro, I mean 20-inch pencil barrel, Vietnam era style builds. People like those. They're popular. But usually it's something like that. My dad had one like this, or the first time I went out shooting, this is what we had. I'd like to build it, or I'm going to build one for my dad who was in the service.
Oh, interesting.
And I want to build it, like the one he had. So it can be really simple. People will, say, oh, I don't, just make it look like that one. And then some people are like, I want this flash hider, I want this barrel, I want this handle,
Right.
That's
what you're really talking about is
every piece.
You're building a piece of history that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is interesting. And of course, now you can buy all the parts you want, different kinds of parts, different barrels, flash hiders, handguards, on and on, until you can recreate a 1967 style, a 1995 style, whatever it was, either what you carried, your dad carried, your granddad carried these days. Because the AR is that old these days. And sometimes it's just the fun of customizing it. It's basically like people who would build hot rods in their garage. Same deal, isn't it?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to say. On the flip side of that, to go to a very young generation of new shooters, a lot of these kids that played these games that have the guns, and they want to recreate their best version or their interpretation of a gun that they used in these video games. Because, you think about all these COVID kids that have been locked up, and all they've had to do is sit and play video games and do online school, and that's how they communicate with each other now.
Right.
And a lot of these kids are like, hey, I like this gun. I want to build one that looks like that. And games are so realistic now that they actually use, some variation of, like, our SOCOM stock is in a couple video games, but it's changed just a little bit so that they don't have to call us and ask for permission. But it's clearly what it is.
It's your product,
it's things like that. So they can build that and have that at home and shoot it in real life. So I don't know. There's a lot of different, like I said, a lot of different inspirations.
Well, I know that it reminds me a little bit of hand loading, where you think, I'm going to get into this because it's going to save me a lot of money. But the reality is it never really does, because you end up just going and going and going, and you can't quit, right?
Right. It's like any other expensive hobby. You start off thinking, well, I'm just going to change the barrel. And then you realize your gas block's probably not right. And then the handguard doesn't quite fit on it. And then next thing you know, you've got two rifles, and that's okay too.
And then you end up making a rifle out of the leftover parts sometimes. So there you go too. All right. Here's a question for you. Somebody says, okay, and you mentioned that. You said, okay, this doesn't fit right, or I need a different gas block. How do you learn how to do that, and what parts to use, and how to make it all run reliably?
Well, I'll be real honest with you. There's a ton of good information out there now. But I always try to go, and being in the industry, I kind of know who to depend on, and I always, if it's something that I'm not familiar with, I always check out my good buddies at Gun Talk and see if they've covered it. And then if they haven't, then I start digging into the internet, and that's what most folks do now. If I make all my phone calls and I've exhausted all the friends that I know that don't have one, then you just start digging.
Is most of the information you get off of places like YouTube on gun bills fairly reliable, fairly useful?
Well, with an AR, it is, because there's not unless you really get into putting, the barrel extensions on yourself and that kind of stuff. When you buy the barrel, all that stuff's already installed, so you don't have to really worry about gauging a whole lot. It's already made to mill spec, and that's the other reason AR-15 is so popular. Everything's made to the same specs, so everything works together. Whereas an AR-10, there's 2 or 3 different variations, and if you're not careful, you buy the wrong parts and the wrong height upper for your Armalite instead of your DPMS platform. So it's there's a lot of variations to it. Whereas an AR-15, you got a lower, you're golden. You can buy parts from anywhere, and most of them are going to go together pretty well.
We call it builds. We're doing builds, but you're really assembling, aren't you?
Right. Yeah, it's really not much gunsmithing, like what I call real gunsmithing, where you get out a file and you can. And as you saw on Build Box, some people will, take that extra step to lap that receiver and, do some of those little extra things that you can do to an AR. But generally speaking, in a production setting, we don't do that. We don't lap every receiver. That stuff's made to work together. We check our specs on the barrel, we check our specs on the upper, and that's how it should work. So,
okay. Oh, tell people about DoubleStar.
Well, DoubleStar started off as J&T Distributing, since we're talking about AR-15 builds. That's kind of how we got our start, was providing different kits. When there was only 3 or 4 manufacturers out there, we were one of them. DPMS, Armalite, those guys. And Jack and Teresa, the ones that started the company, were out there doing gun shows every weekend and, selling kits. And, we just kind of built on that. And when we started doing complete rifles, that's when DoubleStar was born, and the manufacturing side of things was born. And we started actually CNC our own factory that we have, still to this day, 65,000 square feet. And we're running CNC machines and doing the assembly in-house. So it's just kind of grown into this wonderful monster that we keep adding new products for ARs. And we bought Ace rifle stocks back in 2007. And we keep expanding that line. We just released the Gen 3 version of our SOCOM stock for people who wanted to build the Mark 12 Mod H reproductions.
Okay.
Well, our Gen 4 uses a different lockup system, and it's a little easier. But people wanted that old style to build those guns retro, so we brought out another 250 or 300 or something like that.
Wow. If people get into the middle of making a gun using some of your products, can they give you a call and say help?
Absolutely. We've got a great customer service department. Tim, Dave, you can talk to me, Doug, all those guys. They do a great job and are pretty good at troubleshooting. If you can give us, that's the other thing. If you're going to call and ask, it helps if you know a little bit if you've done a little bit of research yourself. So know exactly, where you're at. Because sometimes people will call and send you, and then they'll ask one question and send you a picture of something that has nothing to do with it.
Now we get into the hotels of customer service here. It's like, you're not going to believe what this guy did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's comical, sometimes what happens, but it's okay. We were all beginners at one time, so you should never feel bad about calling and asking a question.
There you go. You guys are also doing knives now. You got blades.
That's right. So last year we rebranded DoubleStar Blades to Outlier Knife Company, and we have a great lineup of outdoor and EDC style blades that everybody should check out. They're all made in Winchester right there in our shop, in that CNC machine shop. The only thing we don't do in-house is the grind and the heat treat, but the heat treat factory is literally right behind our shop. So really, the grind is the only thing that's not done within our eye shot, and it's all good stuff.
Nick, is it DoubleStar USA?
Yes, sir. DoubleStarUSA.com.
There you go. Nick Collier, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, man. You're always welcome here, okay?
Thanks, Tom. We appreciate you.
All right, you take care. All right, yes, and to Jim's question, yes, they have AR-10s as well. Go to DoubleStarUSA.com. You got rifles, you got parts, you got blades, you got all sorts of other stuff. Very cool.